Hi, Merry Meet. So yesterday I was browsing some YouTube videos and I found a long conversation about basically would you take off your Wiccan, occult, witchy, new age and so on jewelry if you were going to meet with someone who might react negatively to it, and if you would take it off, in what situations would you take it off? And I found it to be a very interesting topic, so while the discussion is some years old, I felt like making a video about it anyway. So basically, would I do this? For most of it, I would say no, I wouldn't. This is because I know a lot of the arguments were that the arguments in favor of taking it off was that you don't want to push your religion on anyone. But I don't see how wearing a pentagram necklace is pushing your religion on anyone. That necklace just hangs there and does nothing. It doesn't scream, it doesn't shout, it doesn't tell anyone to believe anything. It is a way to wear a holy symbol that you can see as protective, you can see it as symbolizing your faith. It's just the same as a Christian wearing a crucifix. And I feel that as pagans we do nothing wrong, so why shouldn't it be just as okay for us to wear a pentacle or a triquarta or any other kind of pagan jewelry as it is for a Christian to wear a cross, a fish, or, well, their symbols. And so for the most part, no, I wouldn't take it off, because basically if somebody wants to be prejudiced against me for being pagan and they have a problem with me wearing a crucifix, it's their problem. Basically, to take it off would be sort of playing along with their prejudice. I'm doing absolutely nothing wrong, and I feel that there's a big difference between trying to cause a problem and being willing to accept a problem. And here's the difference. Basically, causing trouble, that would be going over to someone and say, alright, you're a Christian, I don't like you, I'm pagan, fuck off. That's trying to cause a problem. Just wearing a symbol of your faith is not trying to cause problems. It is displaying your faith, announcing that this is the faith you have. And if somebody reacts to that and start harassing you for it, then they are the ones causing the problem, not you. It's like if you have a pair of gay men holding hands. They are not causing problems. Those that are haters that come over to them and start harassing them for it, they are the ones causing the trouble. And I don't believe in playing to prejudice in that way. I believe that I have just as much a right to display symbols of my faith on my person as someone who is Christian or Jewish have. Now, I have to say that I've been very lucky. I have not experienced much prejudice when it comes to my faith. I have been ridiculed a few times by atheists, and there are a few times people have asked me, what you're wearing, is it evil? But I haven't really experienced prejudice as such, and those that have asked if it's evil, when I've explained what it actually is, they've said, oh, okay. And I have Christians in my life, and none of them have ever given a shit about what I believe, so I'm very lucky I haven't experienced a lot of prejudice, but I know quite a few people have. And no, I don't think pagans should feel they need to take their pagan jewelry off to please Christians and others, including atheists, who can't stand to see a symbol of religion on someone other than their own. Now, when it comes to, for example, work, of course, if you have to, you have to. I mean, if you can't get it, there's no way to get that job unless you take it off. That is something else. It sucks. But what can you do? You have to eat. But generally, if at all possible, I would still wear it. And if the manager complained, I would say, do you deny your Christian workers to wear their crucifix? And I wouldn't cause any more trouble than that. I would say, no, religious discrimination isn't okay. So if you want to forbid basically religious symbols worn in your company, fine, but then you have to demand that the Christians and Jews and so on and so forth also remove their religious jewelry, not just those who are practicing alternative religions. Because the way I see it, just refusing to cave to discrimination, that isn't causing a problem. Of course, problems can arise from it, but unless you are willing to take that fight, then discrimination will just continue. Now, I'm not saying you should then be in people's face. Ah, see, I'm wearing a pentagram, I'm wearing a pentagram, I'm wearing a pentagram, fuck you. No, but just quietly wearing your symbol. Nobody should have the right to demand that you take it off. Unless, of course, you are in a work situation where jewelry generally isn't allowed. Like, for example, in Norway, nurses cannot wear jewelry. They can wear tiny little ear studs, but as far as I know, that's the only jewelry they're allowed to wear for health reasons, because jewelry are bacteria traps. But if others are allowed to wear whatever religious jewelry they want, but you are not allowed to wear a pentagram, I would stand on my right and say, this is my fate, this is what I want to wear. I can explain to you what the pentagram is, but I'm gonna wear it. Now, in one of the examples, it was about visiting older relatives and so on in one of the videos I watched. And of course, then you are starting to get into a bit more difficult territory, because you love these people and you don't want to insult them. But I think that even there, when visiting with someone, though not when visiting in their house, but I'll get to that later. Basically, if going out for a cup of coffee or something, even with older relatives, I would wear my pagan jewelry, because I feel that if they want to be prejudiced against me, then they are the one that are rude, and they are the one that's in the wrong, not me, who are just quietly and peacefully wearing a piece of jewelry. So no, in 99% of the cases, I would not remove my pagan jewelry, even if somebody asked me to, or even if I was in a situation that was hostile to pagans. Now, there is one exception to this, and that is if I was to visit somebody in their home. Because I feel that as a guest, you do what the ones who live there wants you to do, or you don't visit. You play by the rules of those that are living in that house, because it's their territory. So it's the same as I enjoy walking around stark naked. I have absolutely no problem with my body. I feel that being naked is extremely natural, and if somebody could see me naked, I don't give a shit. So I mean, we're born naked. I don't see a problem with it. I I think it's more comfortable being naked than being clothed. So I get clothes when I'm going to. I dress. I think that's the right English term. I get dressed when I'm going out, or when I'm having friends over, or anyway when I'm going to interact with other people. But when I'm in the house by myself and my hobby, I'm generally naked. And of course somebody might see me through the window, and I don't care. But when at my mother's house, and she is much more concerned what the neighbors think, and she's terrified that the neighbors would see me wandering around naked, I always wear clothes. The only time I'm naked is when I'm sleeping. Because it's her house, it's her rules. So even if I think it's silly to be so concerned, whatever or not I'm seen naked in her house, it's her rules and I follow them. Because it's her house, I have decided to go and visit her. And it's the same that if I were invited to, we have some Muslim friends, if I were invited to their home, I would not wear this blouse, for example, that shows a lot of cleavage. I would wear like a turtleneck sweater or something like that, and I would put my hair in a bun and dress very conservatively. Because then I'm visiting their house and I don't want to insult those that live in that house. So if I was visiting with an old relative, no, luckily for me, all my old relatives, no, most of my old relatives aren't with us anymore, but for example my grand aunt, she was psychic, so she was fine with my religion. But like I said, I'm very, very lucky. My entire family is okay with what I believe. But if, let's say I was visiting an old relative who would have a problem with it, if I was visiting them in their house, I would not wear my pagan jewelry. Because I want to show respect for the ones living in that house. If I were visiting with them in another place, or if I were visiting with, or if they were visiting me, I would wear it, and if they were insulted by that, their problem. However, I feel that when you are visiting someone and going into their house, you have to play by their rules. Because I feel that somebody's home, that's their territory, and you obey the rules of those that own that territory. That's just basic common decency. But out in public or in your own house and so on, you have the right to wear whatever jewelry you want and display whatever religion you want. It's the same that prayer in public. I pray in public, but I don't shout and scream and make a big fuss of it. But for example, I say grace. I whisper a prayer over my food. If some people don't like that, I know some atheists have a big problem with seeing people pray in public. Their problem. I am harming absolutely nobody by whispering a prayer over my food. Unless they show their heads right against my mouth, they won't hear a thing. All they will see is that I bow my head and whisper a few words. And that kind of display in public, somebody who crosses themselves, what's the problem? It's a basic, for me who are occultist, it's a basic protection sign. It's basically a protection spell. I don't see a problem with doing any kind of religious activity in public as long as you don't force it on anybody else. Basically, praying in public, fine. Trying to get others forced into praying with you, not fine. And if anybody have a problem with what you do that doesn't bother anybody else, because they don't like your faith, don't like what you believe, and so on, they are the one that's causing the problem, not you. And to me, it feels a bit backwards to sit and think, but I don't want to cause a problem, so I don't want to wear my pagan jewelry. To me, that this is the same as there was some debate in Norwegian media about bullying a while back, and some said, yeah, but you have to put a bit of the blame on the ones being bullied. After all, they were at the center of the conflict. Yeah, they're the one being bullied. I mean, so if somebody decides to bully me because I'm fat, it's my fault because I was stupid enough to walk out in public with the body I have? Because then I might cause offense to someone? No! It doesn't work that way. Basically, as long as you don't involve others. I mean, I can understand why somebody has a problem with, I don't personally have a problem with it, but I can understand why somebody has a problem with, for example, prayer calls from a mosque. Especially if it is very loud. No, I would rather listen to those prayer calls than to the commercials that blare out of the various televisions and so on malls. But anyway, I can understand the concept there because it's very loud and it invades other people's privacy. A piece of jewelry hanging off somebody's body, a whispered prayer over some food, a simple religious gesture, a spoken blessing, all of these things doesn't force anybody else to get involved. And for that matter, dressing goth, kissing your gay or lesbian lover, any of this doesn't involve anybody else. So if somebody is offended, it's their problem. You cannot put the responsibility on the one being discriminated against for offending the one that's doing the discrimination. So no, for me, I would not take my pagan jewelry off to appease someone unless I were going to their home. Now, most likely, if somebody really hated paganism like that, I wouldn't go to their home. But if it was somebody who I, for some reason, wanted to visit, I would take the jewelry off then, because then I would enter their territory. But in any other case, I would keep my jewelry on, and if somebody was offended by that, it would be their problem. No, I'm not forcing them to be offended. They decide to be offended themselves. Now, the only time I really have refrained from doing something spiritual, because somebody asked me to, was in I was GMing a role-playing game at Archon. It's one of the conventions that is hosted in Norway each year for role-playing game and other geek enthusiasts, science fiction, fantasy, horror, role-playing games, all of that. And while waiting for some of the other players to arrive from a break, I pulled out my tarot cards and was going to do a quick reading for myself. And one of my players, a young child, was terrified of the cards. I mean, you could believe the boy thought the cards would jump up and eat him. And I did put the cards away. Now, the reason why I did that then was, first of all, this was a child. He was 12 years or so, and I felt that I didn't want to scare a child who had just come there to play some game and have a good time. So I chose to put my cards away. It wasn't, and he never asked me to, he was never rude to me or anything. He was just afraid of them. And I decided that when you have somebody next to you who is so afraid, his energies will probably mess up the reading anyway. And besides, I could read those cards later. If he had been really rude and called me evil and so on, I probably just would have continued reading, but because he was just afraid, I put them away because I don't like to see children afraid. But other than a few rare instances like that, I would continue doing my spiritual work. I would continue wearing my pagan jewelry, no matter what other people say. I'm very open about my faith, and if somebody doesn't like that, it's their problem. That's generally my attitude of it. So, yeah. Except for a very few rare cases, I would refuse to take my pagan jewelry off to appease somebody who just wouldn't understand my faith. So yeah. I hope you all have a great day, and blessed be.